The moment stretched endlessly as Sarah controlled her breathing and waited for the perfect sight picture. Through her scope, the target appeared to dance slightly in the heat waves, a phenomenon that had challenged shooters at this range for decades. She had learned to be patient during her training, waiting for those brief moments when atmospheric conditions provided crystal-clear views of the target center. The wind flag showed steady conditions, confirming that her hold and sight adjustments remained appropriate for the final shot. Sarah's finger rested lightly on the trigger, applying just enough pressure to take up the slack without disturbing her rifle's alignment. Years of practice had taught her to recognize the precise moment when all elements aligned for the perfect shot. The sight picture crystallized suddenly, the target appearing sharp and clear through her scope. Sarah's trigger finger moved with practiced precision, applying steady pressure straight back toward her shoulder. The shot broke cleanly, the rifle recoiling in perfect alignment with her body position. She knew instantly that the shot was good, felt it in the smooth release and straight-back recoil that indicated proper technique. Tom Richardson's voice cut through the silence that had settled over the range. X-ring, dead center. Outstanding shot. The confirmation sent ripples of excitement through the spectator area, though the final scoring would take several minutes to complete. Sarah had posted what appeared to be another perfect shot, but the championship outcome would depend on precise point calculations. Sarah stepped back from the firing line with quiet satisfaction. Her competition concluded regardless of final results. She had achieved her primary goal of proving she belonged at this level of competition, while also discovering capabilities she hadn't known she possessed. The pressure of competing against regional champions had elevated her shooting to standards she had never achieved in practice. Range officials retrieved the targets and began the careful scoring process that would determine final standings. Each shot hole was measured and scored according to precise regulations, with multiple officials verifying accuracy before announcing results. The close competition meant that every point mattered in determining the championship outcome. Marcus Thompson approached Sarah with genuine respect, extending his hand in congratulation for an exceptional performance. "I've been competing for 20 years, and that's some of the best shooting I've ever seen," he said honestly. "Regardless of final results, you've earned the respect of everyone here today." His words carried weight coming from a three-time state champion who had dominated regional competition. Dr. Chun joined the conversation with characteristic analytical curiosity about Sarah's performance. "Your natural ability is remarkable, but what impresses me most is your mental control under pressure," he observed. "Most shooters require years to develop that level of composure in major competition. You have exceptional potential for national-level competition if you choose to pursue it." The suggestions about national competition seemed surreal to Sarah, who had arrived that morning simply hoping to avoid embarrassment among experienced competitors. The transformation from unknown quantity to championship contender in a single day represented achievement beyond her most optimistic expectations. Yet the scores posted throughout the day provided objective evidence of her capabilities. Jennifer Walsh appeared with a bottle of water and a smile that reflected personal pride in Sarah's accomplishment. "You've probably inspired more women to try competitive shooting today than all of us combined have managed in years," she commented. "Performance like yours shows what's possible when talent meets opportunity and preparation." The scoring process continued methodically as officials verified each target multiple times. Tom Richardson announced preliminary scores that showed an extremely close finish among the three leaders, with final results depending on precise measurements of several shots that appeared to straddle scoring rings. The accuracy required for such measurements meant additional time before official results could be announced. Spectators gathered in small groups to discuss what they had witnessed, with many expressing amazement at the quality of competition and Sarah's remarkable performance. Several veteran shooters admitted they had never seen a debut performance of such caliber, comparing it to legendary moments in shooting sports history. The consensus was that regardless of final rankings, Sarah had achieved something extraordinary. Regional shooting forums began buzzing with real-time updates from spectators at the range, spreading news of the remarkable competition to shooting communities across multiple states. Comments ranged from amazement to skepticism, with many requesting video evidence of the reported performance. The attention reflected how unusual it was for unknown competitors to challenge established champions successfully. Tom Richardson approached the microphone to announce preliminary results, his expression suggesting surprise at what the careful measurements had revealed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have the results of today's championship competition, and I've been involved in shooting sports for 30 years, but I've never seen anything quite like this." The crowd fell silent as Tom consulted his scoring sheets. In third place, with an exceptional score that would have won most regional championships, Dr. Robert Chun with a total of 397 out of 400 possible points. Applause acknowledged Dr. Chin's excellent shooting and decades of competitive achievement. In second place, maintaining his reputation as one of our finest competitors, Marcus Thompson with 398 points, just 1 point off a perfect score. The announcement drew appreciative response from spectators who understood the difficulty of achieving such accuracy across 4 demanding stages. Tom paused dramatically before continuing with the final result. And, in first place, in her first major competitive shooting championship, Sarah Martinez with a score of 399 points, establishing a new course record that breaks the previous mark by 2 points. The previous record of 397 had stood for 10 years. The announcement stunned the crowd into momentary silence before erupting in spontaneous applause and cheers. Sarah stood frozen in disbelief, struggling to process that she had not only won the championship, but broken a decade-old record in her debut performance. The achievement seemed impossible even as she heard the official confirmation. Marcus Thompson was the first to reach Sarah, grabbing her in a congratulatory bear hug while laughing with genuine delight. "Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable," he repeated, his competitive disappointment overwhelmed by appreciation for exceptional shooting. Dr. Chin joined them with analytical amazement at the statistical improbability of Sarah's achievement. Jennifer Walsh's congratulations came with tears of joy for what Sarah's success would mean for women in shooting sports. The performance would inspire countless women to try competitive shooting seriously, while proving that gender posed no barrier to excellence in precision sports. Sarah had become a role model without intending to seek such responsibility. Tom Richardson presented Sarah with the championship trophy amid continued applause from spectators and competitors alike. The weight of the Crystal Award felt substantial in her hands, representing validation of 3 years of dedicated practice and the courage to compete against proven champions. She had achieved something that would be remembered in regional shooting sports history. Local media representatives who had arrived after hearing about the unusual competition requested interviews with Sarah, recognizing a human interest story that transcended typical sports coverage. The narrative of an unknown challenger defeating established champions while breaking records appealed to audiences beyond shooting sports enthusiasts. Sarah's phone buzzed constantly with messages from family, friends, and shooting acquaintances who had heard news of her victory through various networks. The attention felt overwhelming after years of quiet practice sessions and modest local competitions. She had become the center of attention in a way she had never sought or expected. The drive home that evening provided time for reflection on the day's remarkable events. Sarah replayed key moments from each stage, analyzing her performance and still struggling to believe the outcome. The trophy sat securely in her passenger seat, physical proof that the day's events had actually occurred rather than representing some elaborate dream. Phone calls from shooting magazines and equipment manufacturers began that same evening, with representatives expressing interest in sponsorship opportunities and feature articles. Sarah's performance had attracted attention from the broader shooting industry, recognizing her potential for future success and marketing appeal. The regional championship that was supposed to be a learning experience had instead launched Sarah into national shooting sports consciousness. Her record-breaking debut would be discussed and analyzed for years to come, inspiring other newcomers while challenging assumptions about the time required to achieve championship-level performance. Most importantly for Sarah, the day had proven that her decision to pursue competitive shooting seriously was justified. The skeptics who had questioned her commitment and potential had been answered definitively through performance that spoke louder than any argument or explanation. She belonged at the highest levels of precision shooting, and this was only the beginning of what she might achieve. Standing at the 500-yard line, Sarah felt the weight of expectation settling around her like a heavy cloak. The spectator area had grown throughout the afternoon, with roughly 60 people now gathered to witness the conclusion of what had become an unexpectedly dramatic competition. Among them were veteran shooters who had driven from neighboring states after hearing about the unknown competitor challenging regional legends. Camera phones appeared throughout the crowd, ready to capture what might become a historic moment. Marcus Thompson methodically arranged his equipment for the final stage, his movements reflecting the calm precision of someone accustomed to high-pressure situations. 3 state championships had taught him to manage competition stress through systematic preparation routines that left nothing to chance. His standing position technique had been refined through thousands of practice shots, each element optimized for maximum stability and consistency. Dr. Chun approached the final stage with characteristic analytical focus, consulting his notebook filled with environmental data and ballistic calculations. His scientific background provided confidence in his systematic approach, but he understood that standing position shooting introduced variables that were difficult to quantify mathematically. Physical stability and mental control became more important than equipment advantages or theoretical knowledge. The format for Stage 4 differed from previous stages, with competitors shooting individually rather than in groups. Each shooter would have the firing line to themselves for 10 shots, eliminating distractions from neighboring positions while increasing pressure through focused attention. Sarah would shoot last among the 3 leaders, giving her the advantage of knowing exactly what scores she needed to achieve. Range officials had set up additional spotting scopes to help spectators follow the action, with experienced competitors volunteering to call out impact locations for the crowd. The atmosphere resembled a golf tournament more than a typical shooting competition, with hushed conversations and polite applause marking exceptional shots. The unusual level of attention reflected the significance of what was unfolding. Marcus Thompson was called to the firing line first, his position as current leader earning him the honor of opening the final stage. He settled into his standing position with practiced efficiency, his rifle finding natural alignment without forced adjustments. Years of training had taught his body to assume consistent positions automatically, removing conscious thought from the equation during critical moments. His first shot rang out with authority, the sound echoing across the range before being followed by Tom Richardson's voice calling X-ring, "Good shot," through the loudspeaker. The excellent start drew appreciative murmurs from spectators who understood the difficulty of achieving such accuracy in standing position at 500 yards. Marcus had established the standard that his competitors would need to match. Shot after shot, Marcus demonstrated why he had dominated regional competition for years. His technique appeared effortless, each round following the same precise sequence of position, breathing, aiming, and trigger control. By his 8th shot, he had posted a score that would typically win any regional championship by a comfortable margin. His final 2 shots maintained the exceptional standard, resulting in a score that seemed almost insurmountable. Dr. Chin approached the firing line with quiet determination, understanding that Marcus had set a benchmark requiring near-perfect shooting to surpass. His standing position technique emphasized scientific principles of balance and alignment, with each element of his position carefully optimized through systematic analysis. The approach had served him well throughout his competitive career. His opening shots matched Marcus's excellent standard, with Tom Richardson calling out X-ring impacts that kept pace with the previous performance. Dr. Chin's methodical approach proved effective under pressure, his consistent routine producing the accuracy needed to challenge for the championship. Spectators watched in amazement as 2 competitors posted scores that exceeded typical regional winning standards. The competition intensified with each of Dr. Chin's shots, his cumulative score tracking closely with Marcus's exceptional performance. His scientific approach to shooting proved as effective as Marcus's instinctive technique, demonstrating that multiple paths could lead to championship-level performance. By his final shot, Dr. Chun had posted a score that tied Marcus for the lead, setting up a dramatic conclusion. Sarah watched both performances with calm focus, analyzing their techniques while mentally preparing for her own shooting. The scores posted by her competitors would have seemed impossible to achieve just hours earlier, but her own performance throughout the day had demonstrated that she belonged at this level. She felt no intimidation, only excitement at the opportunity to test herself under ultimate pressure. Called to the firing line with the championship at stake, Sarah settled into her standing position with the same deliberate precision that had characterized her shooting all day. The familiar weight of her rifle felt reassuring as she established her natural point of aim, allowing her body to find its most stable position without forcing artificial adjustments. Her breathing routine began automatically, each inhalation and exhalation helping to steady her mind and body. The silence from the spectator area was complete as Sarah prepared her first shot. 60 pairs of eyes focused on her position, everyone understanding that they were witnessing something potentially historic. The pressure would have overwhelmed many experienced competitors, but Sarah's concentration narrowed to include only the target, the wind conditions, and her rifle's feedback. Her first shot felt perfect from the moment it left the barrel, the rifle recoiling straight back without disturbing her sight picture. Tom Richardson's voice confirmed the excellent start. X-ring center, excellent shot. The impact drew spontaneous applause from spectators who appreciated the quality of shooting under such pressure. Sarah had matched her competitor's opening performance and established her ability to compete at the highest level. Shot after shot, Sarah maintained the standard that had characterized her entire day. Her standing position proved as solid as her prone work, with natural steadiness that couldn't be taught or bought. Each shot followed the same process: careful wind reading, precise sight alignment, controlled breathing, and smooth trigger press. The consistency was remarkable for someone with limited competition experience. By her fifth shot, Sarah had pulled into a tie for the overall lead, requiring only solid completion of her remaining rounds to claim the championship. The position she had achieved seemed impossible when she arrived that morning as an unknown quantity, yet her performance had proven that talent and preparation could overcome experience and equipment advantages. Spectators watched in hushed amazement as history unfolded before their eyes. Jennifer Walsh stood among the spectators, feeling personal pride in Sarah's performance beyond mere competitive appreciation. As one of the few women competing regularly at high levels, Jennifer understood the significance of Sarah's achievement for female participation in shooting sports. Success at this level would encourage other women to pursue competitive shooting seriously. The pressure intensified with each subsequent shot as Sarah maintained pace with the champions who had preceded her. Her technique showed no deterioration under stress, her mental control proving as strong as her physical skills. Years of medical training had taught her to perform precise tasks under pressure, skills that translated perfectly to competition shooting. Her eighth shot struck the X-ring like the previous 7, maintaining the perfect score needed for championship contention. 2 shots remained between Sarah and what would be considered one of the most remarkable debuts in regional shooting sports history. The crowd's tension was palpable as everyone understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. Marcus Thompson and Dr. Chin watched from the spectator area with expressions mixing admiration and disbelief. Both men had devoted decades to achieving their current skill levels, making Sarah's rapid development seem almost impossible. Yet they could not argue with the evidence of her performance, which spoke louder than any credentials or experience claims. Sarah's 9th shot continued her perfect string, another X-ring impact that brought her within 1 shot of claiming the championship. The final shot would determine whether her remarkable day would conclude with victory or remain a moral triumph that fell just short of ultimate success. Either outcome would represent an achievement beyond what anyone had thought possible that morning. Standing behind her rifle for the final time, Sarah felt the same calm focus that had carried her through the entire competition. The shot that awaited represented the culmination of 3 years of dedicated practice and the validation of her decision to compete at this level despite skepticism from others. Win or lose, she had already proven that talent and determination could overcome traditional barriers in competitive shooting. The target wavered slightly in the afternoon heat waves, requiring patience for a clear sight picture. Sarah controlled her breathing and waited for the optimal moment, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. The final shot of her remarkable day would answer questions about her future in competitive shooting and potentially rewrite the record books of regional competition. word of Sarah's performance spread beyond the immediate shooting community during the lunch break. Social media posts featuring live scoring updates caught the attention of regional shooting forums, where her name appeared alongside established champions in a way that seemed impossible just hours earlier. Comments ranged from impressed surprise to skeptical questions about scoring accuracy. Several forum members claimed they were driving to the range to witness the afternoon stages in person. Range officials found themselves fielding unusual numbers of spectator inquiries as news of the unknown competitor's performance traveled through shooting networks. Tom Richardson received 3 phone calls from shooters who couldn't attend the competition but wanted updates on the mysterious newcomer who was challenging regional legends. The attention added an unexpected element to what had been planned as a routine championship. Sarah used the break to rest in her car, away from the growing crowd and increasing attention. She ate a simple sandwich while reviewing her shooting diary, where she recorded environmental conditions, sight adjustments, and performance notes. The data helped her identify patterns in her shooting that could be applied to afternoon conditions. Unlike many competitors who discussed their performance extensively, Sarah preferred quiet reflection and mental preparation. Jennifer Walsh found Sarah during the break, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing an expression of professional curiosity. As one of the few women competing regularly at high levels, Jennifer understood the unique pressures Sarah faced beyond normal competition stress. The shooting sports remained heavily male-dominated, making exceptional female performance noteworthy for reasons beyond mere scores. "The afternoon winds usually pick up around here," Jennifer offered, settling against Sarah's car. "Stage 3 can be tricky because the wind switches direction about halfway through most relay. Watch the flags at the 400-yard marker particularly close." Her advice came from years of competing at this specific range, knowledge that could prove valuable to a newcomer. Sarah appreciated the guidance, understanding that Jennifer's willingness to help reflected respect earned through morning performance rather than mere politeness toward a female competitor. In shooting sports, advice between competitors was typically reserved for those who had proven themselves capable of using it effectively. Jennifer's assistance represented acceptance into a community that Sarah had been trying to enter for 3 years. Dr. Chen approached as Sarah packed her shooting diary away, his expression thoughtful and analytical. His scientific background made him curious about unusual phenomena, and Sarah's performance certainly qualified as anomalous in his experience. Most shooters required years to develop the consistency she had displayed in her first major competition. "I've been competing for 15 years and teaching ballistics for 30, he said without preamble. "Your wind reading ability is remarkable for someone with limited competition experience. Have you studied meteorology or atmospheric physics?" His question reflected genuine scientific curiosity about the source of Sarah's intuitive skills. Sarah explained her background as a medical technician, work that required steady hands and precise measurements but little exposure to ballistics theory. Her wind reading came from careful observation during practice sessions and an intuitive understanding of how environmental conditions affected bullet flight. Dr. Chun listened with growing fascination at the natural ability she had developed through pure observation and practice. The conversation attracted Marcus Thompson, who had been discussing strategy with other veteran competitors. Marcus's approach to shooting combined extensive equipment knowledge with methodical training routines that left little to chance. He found Sarah's intuitive style intriguing because it contradicted his belief that consistent success required systematic approaches and expensive equipment. "What's your training schedule like?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious about how she had developed such consistent technique in relatively short time. Sarah described her weekend practice sessions at a local range, typically firing 100 rounds per session while focusing on specific skills. Her training volume was modest compared to serious competitors who often fired 500 rounds per week during competition season. The information surprised both men, who expected intensive training regimens to produce Sarah's level of performance. Most top competitors dedicated significant time and money to their shooting development, attending specialized schools and working with professional coaches. Sarah's achievement through self-directed practice suggested exceptional natural ability combined with intelligent training focus. Stage 3 began with competitors moving to the 600-yard line, the longest distance of the day's competition. The increased range demanded perfect technique while amplifying any equipment limitations or environmental reading errors. Sarah studied the target through her scope, noting how the increased distance made precise aiming more challenging with her basic equipment. Wind conditions had indeed intensified during the lunch break, with flags showing variable directions at different ranges. The complex conditions would test every competitor's ability to read environmental factors and make accurate ballistic adjustments. Several veterans privately admitted that the afternoon winds made consistent shooting extremely difficult even with decades of experience. Sarah's relay was called to the firing line as spectator attendance reached unusual levels for a regional competition. Word had spread through local shooting communities about the unknown competitor who was challenging established champions. Several spectators brought cameras, hoping to document what might become a significant moment in regional shooting sports history. Settling into her shooting position at 600 yards, Sarah felt the familiar calm that accompanied her best shooting performances. The increased distance and challenging winds required complete focus on fundamental technique and environmental reading. She blocked out the larger crowd and additional attention, creating the mental bubble that allowed optimal concentration. Her first shot at the extended range struck the target's 9-ring, a solid impact that confirmed her ballistic calculations were accurate for the new distance. The wind had pushed the bullet slightly right of center, information she could use for subsequent shots. Sarah made a windage adjustment and prepared for her second round. The second shot struck closer to target center, indicating her wind correction was appropriate. Her third and fourth shots grouped tightly in the high-scoring zones, building confidence in her ability to maintain performance at the challenging distance. Other competitors watched her shooting between their own strings of fire, noting the consistency she maintained despite difficult conditions. By the midpoint of Stage 3, Sarah had established herself firmly in contention for the overall championship. Her cumulative score kept pace with Marcus Thompson and Dr. Chun, both of whom were shooting at the top of their considerable abilities. The three-way battle created excitement among spectators who had expected a routine victory by one of the established champions. Jennifer Walsh's prediction about changing wind conditions proved accurate as the relay progressed. Halfway through the stage, the wind shifted direction and increased in intensity, catching several competitors off guard and resulting in shots that missed intended impact points. Sarah noticed the change through careful flag observation and adjusted her hold accordingly. Her shots continued to group well despite the changing conditions, demonstrating wind reading skills that impressed veteran competitors. Reading wind accurately required years of experience for most shooters, making Sarah's intuitive ability particularly remarkable. Her performance suggested natural talent that typically took decades to develop through conventional training methods. Marcus Thompson found himself genuinely challenged for the first time in several competitions, pushing his shooting to maintain pace with the newcomer. His extensive experience provided advantages in reading complex conditions, but Sarah's natural steadiness and consistent technique proved formidable competition. The battle between experience and natural talent created compelling drama for spectators. Dr. Chin approached the stage with scientific methodology, carefully recording environmental data and calculating precise adjustments for each shot. His systematic approach typically provided consistent results, but the rapidly changing conditions challenged even his analytical methods. Sarah's intuitive adjustments seemed to track environmental changes more quickly than his mathematical calculations. The final shots of Stage 3 maintained the high standard of competition, with all three leaders posting scores that would have won most regional championships. Sarah's performance continued to surprise spectators and competitors who had arrived expecting a routine competition between familiar faces. Her presence had elevated the entire event beyond typical regional standards. When scoring was completed for Stage 3, Sarah found herself in second place overall, just 2 points behind Marcus Thompson and 1 point ahead of Dr. Chun. The narrow margin meant that the final stage would determine the championship among three competitors shooting at exceptional levels. The position she had earned represented validation of her decision to compete at this level despite skepticism from others. Stage 4 would test a different skill set entirely, standing position shooting at 500 yards. The unsupported position challenged physical stability and fundamental marksmanship in ways that prone shooting did not. Many excellent prone shooters struggled with standing positions, where natural steadiness and consistent technique became even more critical. Sarah had practiced standing position extensively during her training, understanding that it separated good shooters from exceptional ones. Her medical technician background provided advantages in steady hands and controlled breathing, skills that translated well to unsupported shooting positions. She felt confident in her abilities, but understood that her competitors possessed decades of experience in managing competition pressure. The afternoon sun created challenging lighting conditions for the final stage, with targets appearing to shimmer in the heat waves rising from the concrete firing line. The visual distortion made precise aiming more difficult, requiring competitors to time their shots during moments when atmospheric conditions provided clear sight pictures. As competitors prepared for the final stage, the tension was palpable among spectators and participants alike. A regional championship that had been expected to follow predictable patterns had developed into a genuine three-way contest between proven champions and an unknown challenger. The outcome would depend on who could maintain their performance under the ultimate pressure of a close competition. The alarm buzzed at 5:30, but Sarah was already awake, staring at the ceiling of her budget motel room. Competition nerves had kept her restless through the night, her mind rehearsing sight pictures and wind-reading techniques. She had competed in smaller matches before, but nothing approaching the caliber of shooters she would face today. The Riverside Regional Championship attracted competitors from 5 states, including several who regularly competed at national-level events. After a quick breakfast of coffee and toast, Sarah arrived at the range an hour before the mandatory safety briefing. The morning air carried a crisp bite that would affect bullet flight, requiring careful attention to temperature-related ballistic adjustments. She used the extra time to study wind flags positioned at various distances along the course, noting patterns in their movement that would help her read conditions throughout the day. Other early arrivals included the most serious competitors, veterans who understood that preparation often determined the difference between winning and losing. Sarah recognized Marcus Thompson setting up his elaborate wind-reading equipment, complete with a tablet computer running ballistic software that cost more than her monthly salary. His preparation routine involved checking multiple weather apps, recording environmental data, and calculating precise firing solutions for every target distance. Dr. Robert Chun, a retired physics professor who had dominated regional competitions for the past decade, methodically arranged his equipment with scientific precision. His shooting kit included custom tools for measuring wind speed, humidity, and barometric pressure. Chun approached competitive shooting like a laboratory experiment, collecting data and applying mathematical formulas to achieve consistent results. Sarah's preparation routine appeared simple by comparison. She checked her rifle's zero using a laser bore sighter, verified her scope settings against a printed data card, and mentally rehearsed her shooting positions. While she lacked the sophisticated equipment of her competitors, she possessed something equally valuable: an intuitive understanding of her rifle's behavior under different conditions. The competitors' meeting began promptly at 8 o'clock, with range officials explaining the day's course of fire. 4 stages would test different aspects of precision shooting, starting with prone positions at 300 yards and culminating with standing shots at 500 yards. Each stage allowed 20 minutes for 10 shots, requiring competitors to balance speed with accuracy under time pressure. Stage 1 commenced with competitors divided into 3 relays. Sarah was assigned to the second relay, giving her the opportunity to observe the first group's performance and gather information about wind conditions. She watched through binoculars as the morning's first shots rang out, noting where impact struck relative to target centers. Marcus Thompson was among the first relay shooters, his performance drawing attention from spectators and competitors alike. His shots formed precise clusters in the target's X-ring, each impact falling within a space smaller than a quarter. The quality of his shooting reminded everyone why he had won 3 consecutive state championships and regularly placed in the top 10 at national competitions. Dr. Chin's shooting proved equally impressive, his methodical approach yielding consistent results that reflected his scientific understanding of external ballistics. Each of his shots followed careful calculations and environmental measurements, producing groups that rivaled Marcus's performance. The two men had dominated regional competitions for years, trading victories while maintaining mutual respect for each other's abilities. When Sarah's relay was called to the firing line, she felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that accompanied competitive shooting. Unlike practice sessions where mistakes could be corrected, every shot now counted toward her final score. She settled into her shooting position with practiced efficiency, adjusting her rifle's position until the sight picture appeared natural and stable. The range officer's commands echoed across the facility as competitors prepared for the first stage. Relay 2, you may commence firing when ready, came the announcement that officially started Sarah's competition. She took a deep breath, settled her crosshairs on the target center, and squeezed the trigger with steady pressure. Her first shot felt perfect the moment it broke, the rifle recoiling straight back without disrupting her sight picture. Through her scope, she watched the impact appear in the target's 9 ring, slightly left of center due to a wind condition she had misread. The shot scored well, but revealed valuable information about current conditions that she could apply to subsequent rounds. Sarah's second shot corrected for the wind displacement, striking closer to the target center. Her third shot grouped tightly with the second, both impacts falling within the high-scoring X-ring. By her fifth shot, she had established a rhythm that felt natural and sustainable, each round following a consistent process of wind reading, sight alignment, and trigger control. Spectators and fellow competitors began taking notice of Sarah's performance as her shots continued to group in the target center. Tom Richardson watched through his spotting scope, calling out impact locations to other range officials who were tracking scores. Sarah's shooting was drawing attention not just for accuracy, but for the steady improvement visible with each round. "Who is that shooter in lane 15?" asked a spectator who had been following regional competitions for several years. He recognized most of the serious competitors, but had never seen Sarah before today. Tom Richardson consulted his scoring sheet before responding that the shooter was Sarah Martinez, competing in her first major championship. The information spread quickly among spectators and competitors not currently shooting. Conversations buzzed with surprise at the quality of shooting from an unknown competitor. Several veterans moved closer to observe Sarah's technique, curious about the fundamentals that were producing such consistent results. Sarah remained focused on her shooting process, blocking out the growing attention around her position. Competition shooting required complete concentration, with any distraction potentially affecting shot placement. She had learned to create a mental bubble that excluded everything except the target, wind conditions, and her rifle's feedback. Her final shots of Stage 1 maintained the high standards she had established, resulting in a group size that compared favorably with the day's best performances. When the targets were retrieved and scored, Sarah's total placed her third overall for the stage, behind only Marcus Thompson and Dr. Chun. The results sent ripples of surprise through the shooting community, as few had expected her to compete at that level. Stage 2 moved competitors to the 500-yard line, where increased distance amplified any errors in technique or wind reading. The longer range revealed weaknesses in equipment and skill that shorter distances might conceal. Sarah studied the wind flags carefully, noting changes in direction and intensity that had developed since the morning's first stage. Her shooting position felt comfortable despite the longer distance, her rifle tracking smoothly as she moved between targets. The increased magnification required by the longer range made precise sight alignment more critical, but Sarah had practiced extensively at similar distances during her weekend training sessions. The second stage began with competitors again divided into relays. Sarah found herself shooting alongside Jennifer Walsh, a veteran competitor who had been shooting competitively for over 20 years. Jennifer's extensive experience showed in her methodical approach to each shot, taking time to carefully read conditions before committing to the trigger press. "Nice shooting on Stage 1," Jennifer commented as they prepared their equipment. Her compliment carried genuine respect rather than mere politeness, recognition from one competitor to another of demonstrated skill. Sarah thanked her while maintaining focus on her preparation routine, knowing that past performance meant nothing if she couldn't maintain consistency. The longer distance of Stage 2 revealed the quality differences between equipment more clearly than the previous stage. Rifles with superior accuracy potential and high-end scopes provided tangible advantages in precision and target resolution. Sarah's modest equipment performed admirably, but required perfect technique to achieve results that better rifles might produce more easily. Her first shot at 500 yards struck the target's 8-ring, a respectable impact that established her 0 for the new distance. Sarah made a slight windage correction based on the impact location and fired her second round. The shot struck closer to center, confirming her adjustment and building confidence for the remaining rounds. Shot after shot, Sarah's performance remained consistent with her morning's showing. Her groups stayed tight, her scores remained high, and her technique appeared unaffected by the pressure of increased expectations. Other competitors began openly discussing her shooting between relays, wondering about her background and training methods. By the conclusion of Stage 2, Sarah had maintained her position among the top 3 competitors, a feat that established her as a legitimate contender rather than a fortunate beginner. The regional shooting community buzzed with speculation about her potential and questions about where such talent had been hiding. Marcus Thompson approached Sarah during the lunch break, his expression mixing curiosity with respect. "I haven't seen shooting like that from someone so new to competition," he said honestly. "Where did you learn to shoot?" His question reflected genuine interest rather than condescension, recognition that Sarah's performance demanded explanation. Sarah explained her relatively recent introduction to competitive shooting, her methodical approach to skill development, and her dedication to consistent practice. Marcus listened with growing appreciation for her natural ability and work ethic, understanding that exceptional talent occasionally emerged from unexpected sources. The afternoon stages would test different skills and potentially separate the field as fatigue and pressure mounted. Sarah knew that maintaining her performance level through 4 complete stages would require sustained concentration and physical endurance. She also understood that her competitors would be adjusting their strategies now that her capabilities were known. Sarah Martinez stepped out of her weathered Honda Civic and surveyed the sprawling shooting range complex before her. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete parking lot, already filled with expensive pickup trucks and SUVs sporting gun manufacturer stickers and military unit decals. She clutched her modest gun case tighter, feeling the weight of skeptical stares from the men gathered near the entrance. At 28, Sarah had been shooting for only 3 years, a lifetime shorter than most competitors who started as children with their fathers and grandfathers. Her introduction to competitive shooting came through necessity rather than tradition. After a break-in at her apartment 2 years ago, she decided to learn self-defense. What started as basic safety courses evolved into weekend trips to the local range, where her natural steadiness and fierce determination caught the attention of veteran shooters. The Riverside Regional Championship was her first major competition, and the whispers started the moment she signed up. Word spread quickly through the tight-knit shooting community about the new girl who dared to enter the precision rifle division. Phone calls were made, social media posts shared, and bets placed. Most gave her credit for courage, but doubted she belonged among shooters with decades of experience. Tom Richardson, a grizzled range master with 30 years of competition under his belt, watched Sarah approach the registration table. He had seen her practice on weekends, noting her methodical approach and consistent improvement. While others dismissed her as naive, Tom recognized something different in her focus. She didn't shoot for glory or validation. She shot with the intense concentration of someone who understood that precision was earned through thousands of repetitions. "First big competition?" asked Janet Walsh, the registration coordinator, as Sarah handed over her paperwork. Janet had been involved in competitive shooting for 15 years and knew every serious competitor in the region. Sarah's name was unfamiliar, which meant she was either very new or competing from outside their usual circuit. "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied quietly, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. She had driven 4 hours from her small town to compete, taking vacation days from her job as a medical technician. The entry fee represented a significant portion of her monthly shooting budget, but she knew she needed to test herself against top-level competition. The range buzzed with activity as competitors unpacked their equipment. Sarah watched in amazement at the elaborate setups around her. Custom rifles worth more than her annual salary gleamed in the morning light. Precision scopes with price tags that matched her car's value sat atop carefully crafted stocks. Shooting mats that cost more than her entire kit spread across the concrete like expensive carpets. Her own rifle was a standard production model she had saved months to buy. The scope, while reliable, was basic compared to the high-end optics surrounding her. Her shooting mat was a simple foam pad she had purchased online. Everything about her setup screamed amateur to the experienced eyes around her, yet Sarah felt no shame. She knew her equipment well and had spent countless hours learning its capabilities and limitations. Marcus Thompson, a three-time state champion, noticed Sarah's modest setup as he arranged his equipment at the adjacent shooting position. His custom rifle had been built by one of the country's premier gunsmiths, each component selected for maximum accuracy. The scope alone cost more than most people's entire shooting setup. He glanced at Sarah's rifle and suppressed a chuckle. In his experience, expensive equipment didn't guarantee success, but it certainly helped at the highest levels of competition. "Nice rifle," Marcus commented diplomatically, though his tone suggested polite conversation rather than genuine admiration. Sarah nodded her thanks, understanding the subtext but refusing to be intimidated. She had learned to ignore condescension during her 3 years in a predominantly male sport. Every range session had included subtle tests of her knowledge and commitment. The morning continued with equipment inspection and competitor briefings. Sarah listened intently as range officials explained the course of fire, scoring procedures, and safety protocols. The competition would span 3 days, with multiple stages testing different aspects of precision shooting. Distances would range from 300 to 1,000 yards, challenging competitors to read wind conditions, calculate elevation adjustments, and maintain consistent form under pressure. During the lunch break, conversations inevitably turned to predictions and past performances. Sarah's name was mentioned frequently, usually followed by phrases like, "good for her," or "we'll see how she does." The general consensus was that she would provide an interesting storyline, but posed no real threat to established competitors. Several veterans made a point of introducing themselves, offering advice that bordered on condescending encouragement. "The key is not to get discouraged," explained Bill Peterson, a 40-year veteran of the sport. "These competitions can be overwhelming for newcomers. Focus on learning rather than scores, and you'll get more out of the experience." His advice was well-intentioned, but assumed Sarah lacked the mental toughness for serious competition. Sarah accepted the guidance graciously while internally feeling frustrated by the assumptions. She had not entered this competition as a learning exercise or to make friends. Despite her relative inexperience, she possessed an unshakable belief in her abilities and an intense desire to prove herself against the best shooters in the region. As the afternoon practice sessions began, Sarah finally had the opportunity to demonstrate her skills rather than endure well-meaning advice. She approached the firing line with quiet confidence, methodically setting up her equipment with practiced efficiency. Her pre-shot routine was consistent and deliberate, each movement serving a specific purpose in her preparation. The practice targets were set at 600 yards, a distance that separated casual shooters from serious competitors. Sarah settled into her shooting position, checked her scope settings, and began her breathing routine. The familiar weight of the rifle felt reassuring in her hands as she aligned the crosshairs on the distant target. Her first shot rang out with authority, the report echoing across the range. Through her scope, she watched the impact strike the target near the center of the bullseye. Murmurs of approval came from nearby shooters who had been watching her preparation. A good first shot could be luck, but it suggested potential for more. Sarah's second shot grouped tightly with the first, both impacts falling within the X-ring that marked the highest scoring zone. By her fifth shot, she had established a pattern that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Her shots formed a tight cluster that would have scored well in any competition, regardless of equipment or experience level. Tom Richardson watched the practice session through his spotting scope, carefully noting each competitor's performance. Sarah's shooting caught his attention not just for accuracy, but for consistency. Many shooters could produce one or two excellent shots, but maintaining precision across multiple rounds required exceptional skill and concentration. She shoots like she's been doing this for 20 years, Tom commented to Janet, who had joined him at the observation point. Janet nodded in agreement, surprised by the quality of shooting from someone she had never heard of before today. The regional shooting community was small enough that exceptional talent rarely went unnoticed for long. As practice concluded and competitors packed their equipment, the conversations took on a different tone regarding Sarah's potential. While most still expected the veteran shooters to dominate the competition, Sarah had earned genuine respect for her demonstrated skill. Tomorrow's first day of actual competition would reveal whether she could maintain this level of performance under pressure. Walking back to her car as the sun set behind the mountains, Sarah felt satisfied with her first day. She had proven to herself and others that she belonged at this level of competition. The whispers and skeptical glances had been replaced by nods of acknowledgement from fellow competitors who recognized genuine talent when they saw it. The real test would begin tomorrow when scores counted and pressure mounted. Sarah knew she had surprised people today, but she also understood that expectations would now be higher. The element of surprise that had worked in her favor during practice would disappear once her capabilities became known. She looked forward to the challenge of proving that today's performance was just the beginning of what she could accomplish.